Welcome to Paperback Perspectives, a podcast about books, where your hosts, Ryan, Kailen, and Annette, give you their perspectives on all things reading. Cozy up in your favorite book nook and let's dive in.
Is Alan Stone going to be playing in the background as well? That'd
be fine.
That might be copyright.
Heaven following me everywhere.
Stop! You sound too close. He's going to DMCA you.
DMCA.
Yeah, it's the feds.
DMCA.
Who is starting us off with our welcome to?
Did you start it now? Oh, okay.
Whenever you guys want to do it, it's great. No rush.
I always screw it up when I do it first.
Welcome to Podcast Perspectives.
Fine, I'll do it. Whatever.
Don't mess it up.
Every time.
Okay.
What do you mean?
You said you were going to start it. Don't look at us.
Are we ready?
This is not uncommon.
Except usually Sam's recording this part. But okay. All right, I'm ready. Welcome to Paperback Perspectives. We are happy to have you back for what chapter are we on?
Chapter 9, but we just released a novella. So it's like 9, but there was a 0.5 before this.
Oh, we have an 8.5?
Yes, we have an 8.5.
I love it.
Yes.
Okay. We have a special guest with us today. Kailen, would you introduce our guest?
This is Jen.
Hello.
Or Jenifer Halvorson. She is my sister-in-law and Sam's sister-in-law, and she is married to Sam's brother. And we're going to get her perspective on all things books. Welcome.
Yay.
Thank you.
We are very excited to have you
So
here.
excited.
We love guests.
We also
Yes.
really appreciate that you've given us feedback from the start.
Yes. And that you've been reading recommendations. It's so fun. But we'll get into all that.
So we can't wait to hear from you today.
Yeah. So we usually start with the small talks and life updates and things. When we were going over things, we were kind of like, oh, not a lot has happened for us, but I'll start. Thanksgiving, obviously that happened. It was fun. I'll let you dive into more of what we did for Dallaslager Thanksgiving, but Halvorsons, we had the whole crew. So there's a lot of children and family, and it's awesome and chaotic and
you guys
fun.
have, like, 6 kids under 5 and under. Is that what
5.
it is?
6.
5.
I can't.
6 under 5. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. It's chaotic, but really fun.
I was thinking too, just about Terry's house, like cement floors, walls, a lot of just like hard things in the decor, and then 14 people's voices.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
really loud.
It's very loud.
Not to mention everything's white.
Yeah,
with all
that
those
too.
kids.
Yep. But it was really fun, and we had some yummy dessert. I've also had some good, fun play dates with nieces and nephews. That's been really fun. Hannah and Evan, Sam's other sibling, have moved recently, so we kind of got to play with them while we were helping them move some stuff, and they're hilarious. It's so funny to hear what kids have to say. They're so funny. And then, that's pretty much all I have for updates. Just working, the usual.
It is that time of year where it's the
Slows down. It's cold outside. You don't really do
holiday
as much.
work.
Yeah.
It has suddenly gotten cold outside.
Really cold.
Like we went from the longest, most beautiful fall to hello winter.
Like super winter. Cold winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can go next. So Kailen mentioned Thanksgiving, and we have the awesome fortune of getting to we have a tradition that has started where friends of ours, family of ours, all gather together. It's a diverse but fantastic group. And I was thinking about you talking about all the people and the sound echoing off the walls. And we don't have any little kids there, but man, everybody talks at the same time. And we are probably the loudest Thanksgiving group.
Or maybe a bit of a loud family. Maybe.
I don't think there's a maybe. I think we are a loud family. And we seem to hang out with loud friends, and an extended family is loud too. But it's great. I love it. So we celebrated that on Thursday with a fantastic group. And with that same group, we've spent some time yesterday, and today we're heading to Wicked to watch the movie this afternoon. So before the podcast, we were talking a little bit about the book, and none of us have read it, but Jen has started it, and Ryan has seen it before, and the rest of us know some of the songs, and we're just looking forward to that this afternoon.
So if you have read it, I'd be curious to hear what
I would
people
too.
thought about it. Or
I know.
I think it's actually a 3-book series, and I don't really know what parts of the story from the book series were what informed the musical.
Interesting.
Oh, that'll be fun to follow
Very
up and
interesting.
see.
Yeah.
So I just want to wrap up my current life updates by saying I realized this Thanksgiving I am really thankful for some of the changes that have happened in the last year and really positive things, because I think it's been a really good growth and positives for us as a group and some of us as individuals. So very thankful for that.
Woo! Good one.
Very well spoken.
Thanks.
Yeah. Also, I'd just like to
I
point out that
practiced.
one of our friends from Iowa who came up proclaimed that this is the coldest state she has ever been in.
I believe it was the coldest place.
And she has been to 49 of the 50 states.
Really? Yeah. What state hasn't she been to?
Alaska.
Okay.
So there's still a chance.
I don't know about that. I feel like we're still going to take the cake.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My small talk, like I said, not a whole lot happened. The biggest thing was that my best friend Tom got married. He and Maddie got
congratulations,
married.
Tom and Maddie.
It was on a
It is
resort.
the same Tom
in-
that has been on this podcast.
Yes, previous guest, friend of the podcast, Tom. It was on a resort in just north of Duluth by Two Harbors, right on the lake, Lake Superior. And so when you hear November wedding on one of the Great Lakes, you're like,
Which
don't know what we're going to get.
you guys got married there as well in August.
July.
Oh, I'm not
But
close
it gets
at all.
confusing too because we also got courthouse married in
Yes.
May.
Yes.
Okay.
But
The weather led us to think it was a lot later with the wind.
It was chilly with the wind.
Really windy. Yeah. No, we really lucked out. I checked the weather in the morning of the wedding, 2-mile-an-hour wind. It was perfect temperature. It was in like the 40s. It was a little chilly, but the ceremony was outside, but we were in and out in 10 minutes.
The gales
It
of
was
November
perfect.
held off for Tom and Maddie.
The day that we were there, that Sunday, was the anniversary of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And so
know.
I had to inform Lauren about the Edmund Fitzgerald, and she seemed very non-impressed with the song that I kept playing over and over and over again.
Which is funny because what was the first thing I said after we talked about the weather? I was like, did you know it was the weekend?
Exactly. I thought it was like a thing that all Midwestern people know, but apparently just
It's
us
not
weirdos.
obligatory?
No, I guess not.
We are kind of Great Lake nerd. Like, we're very find fascinating
We're
things by
nerdy?
that. Yeah. I feel like we share weird facts about
Yeah,
that.
we do.
Last year when that tanker was sinking, I was obsessed with that story.
Sam, what do the ships do that come into Duluth?
They go toot toot.
Yeah, Sam
They go
loves
toot,
the ships.
Big shit.
Every boat that I saw on the lake, I sent a picture to Sam and I said, "Sam, big boat!" And he replied, "Toot toot." It was very funny.
Every time.
Every time. Then other than that, it was a beautiful wedding. Very happy for them. Just hanging out with friends and stuff for the last month. Thanksgiving was awesome. And yeah, I'm just thankful for my new job that I got this year. It's been a much needed change. Very nice change. And then family and friends and just like, the usuals, the boring stuff.
I didn't know we were doing things we were thankful for.
That's fine. You're just a non-thankful person. That's okay.
Ungrateful.
I'm really thankful I don't have to be in school anymore.
That's a good grateful.
Yeah. And family and friends and life. Okay.
Well done.
Thanks.
not being in school is a big life change.
That is a
when
big
it's
one.
been your whole life until
Yeah.
now.
20 years of school, and I'm not doing it anymore. Dun dun.
Woo!
Yeah.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I guess I'm on vacation in the Grand Forks area.
Woohoo!
because I live in Minneapolis, and I brought 3 of the 6 kids to the Thanksgiving party.
Everyone's favorite vacation destination, Grand Forks.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. And maybe just the shifting weather. It felt very cold arriving here
Yes.
because it is colder than Minneapolis. And then also, I think it got cold at the same time. So,
Yep. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
been windy the last week, too. Like, the wind has been really cold.
Yeah.
Like, yesterday was bad.
It wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for that wind.
It's just the wind. It cuts right through
Just
ya.
wouldn't be so bad.
I thought I was appropriately dressed, but I was missing like a scarf over my face. If I had a scarf, I could have handled it.
Yeah. It's brutal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
And we've got a puzzle in front of us on the table, which made me think I've been doing a lot of puzzles. That's what
fun.
I've been doing lately.
That's awesome.
I think I started with one I got for Christmas from you and Kailen and Sam. It was a houseplant one, and it was pretty hard.
Oh,
So
Fun.
Finally finished that 3 years
Yeah.
later or
I wish I had
something.
a space for puzzles. Our apartment's way too small, and I feel like our cats would just eat the pieces. And that's just not a good recipe for anybody.
In your future, you can have a little puzzle space.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to like lock it down with like a glass case so they don't eat the pieces of the puzzle.
Wow.
Puzzle mats and puzzle boards are helpful so you can move it somewhere safe when you're not building it.
Okay.
I've got toddlers around. I sometimes have to build parts of puzzles multiple times because they get it, they take it apart, and then I always say, "No, I'm putting this together. I'm not taking it apart."
But taking it apart is so fun. Oh, that's funny. Should we get into what we've read and currently reading?
Yeah.
I've been really bad this month.
Would you
Well,
like to
It's
start?
not bad.
Yeah.
Hey, every time, what do we say? We're not judging.
No.
Yeah, but I feel guilty because I have so many really great books that I want to read, but I only read one, and it was an audiobook that because I had started it like months ago.
Guilt has no place in reading.
And then I started it back up again. I'm ignoring you. And then but I have like House in the Cerulean Sea that I want to read. I have a Brandon Sanderson series that I want to start, and I've got like there's too many options, which is why I'm really
Let's
excited
focus
about
on
this.
what we have
Hard-
read and
What
the
did you read?
positivities of that.
I finished Never Lie by Frida McFadden, and it was so good. I don't know why I stopped, because as soon as I restarted it, I was hooked again. And I was like, oh, I know how this is going to end.
You do
I know
not,
the twists
sir.
and turns. I can predict it. And then it got to the end, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, very, very good. Highly recommend it. I'm definitely going to listen to more of her books in the future. I know you recommended some to me, Kailen. But yeah, that was the one book I read, and I very, very liked it. Very much liked it. I think I would rate it a 4.75 out of 5.
That's a little out of your usual genre, too.
Yeah, I don't usually read a lot of mysteries, but I really liked it. So I think I'm going to try to read more mysteries.
It's like opening up some, opening things up for you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Right.
that was me.
Okay.
Are you currently reading anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh,
good for
but
you.
We have a plan for finding you something new.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I'm stuck in between.
Do you want to talk about that now and pick one?
Sure.
Okay. We
So you go for
visited
it.
Midtown Marketplace yesterday, and the bookstore that Ryan has previously referenced.
Abigail's.
Books and gifts or something
Gosh,
like
I
that.
Something
had
like
the
that.
bookmark and I forgot it. Anyway, we bought this book or this packet of cards that is lots of cards, and it's helping you decide what you should read next. So you draw a card, and we'll see what Ryan gets that tells you what you should read next.
Abigail's Book and Gift Shop.
Nice.
There you go. Pick a card, any card.
This is stressful. This is good audio podcasting, watching me pick a card.
Okay, what do you have?
Read a book that inspired a movie.
Oh.
Wicked.
Yeah, Wicked.
Yeah.
Read the whole series of Wicked. That's ironic.
I feel like you could do that easily, though, because that's kind of the books you like. Like,
Like
Yeah.
you've read The Martian and you really enjoyed that.
Maybe I'll just reread The Martian.
there you go.
Hey, I'm going to talk about rereading when it's my turn.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, a book that inspired a movie. I'm going to write that down because I will forget.
Nice.
We'll remind you.
I'm done.
Go ahead.
We'll just look at one another and decide who's going next. All right. I have 4 books that I have attempted to finish. I have finished 3 books, and I am going to disappoint Tom with one.
Oh.
So I found a new author named Harini Nagendra who writes a series called The Bangalore Detectives Club. And that was what the first book was called. And the second one is called Murder Under a Red Moon. It takes place in 1920s India. And she's breaking stereotypes and boundaries of their societal expectations and solving mysteries at the same time. I did them as audiobooks. I might have liked them better. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's very descriptive, and I learned a lot about that time and that place. And the mysteries were pretty good. Actually, just the historical part of it was even more interesting to me than the mystery part of it. And then I have attempted to read Tom's. Our question that we always ask our guests is, what is the one book you would recommend for everybody? And Tom recommended A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. And I love you, Tom, and I tried, but it wasn't for me.
Way to try.
I did try, and
What's the hang up?
Yeah, what about it made you not
I
finish
just
it?
couldn't get into it. Like, I kept trying to go back to it and pick it up, and then it was like my brain would just check out. Like, I I'm reading, but I'm not even bringing this in because my mind just is not engaging in this. So I don't know if it's where I was at the moment or just not a text I could interact with. But
did you read it with like a physical book?
I was reading it on Kindle.
Okay.
So not audio, but actual reading it on Kindle. And I just couldn't. My brain just wasn't buying into it.
Not for you.
Not for me. So maybe I'll try again in another world, but it's a unique story. It's a traveling monk, and then there's robots that have been exiled or separated themselves from the rest of this world. It's unique, and I just wasn't clicking.
Not for you.
And then I have dove into my world of rereads where you just need a little comfort reading, and I went back to my favorite author, and sometimes you just need to know how things are going to end and have easy reading.
Hallmark
And
movies.
So yeah.
As well.
Yeah. So I have reread The Beekeeper's Apprentice by Laurie R. King for maybe the, I don't know, second or seventh time.
I
And
was going to say second time. No.
and it was just a happy little read for me. And my current read, because I just finished that one, my current read is one that I have at school that's good, but it's just taking me forever because I'm not getting as much time to dive into it as I would like, is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor.
You're squeaking.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You're
Yeah.
swinging your legs and the chair is squeaking.
Okay, I'll fix it.
Annette, do you have set reading times at school where like everyone in the school reads?
We have on the team that I am on, we have set so each class reads for 20 minutes on a different day. So in my classes, we read for the first 20 minutes of their math class on Mondays.
If the book is really good, do you ever accidentally make it 30 minutes?
In classes that it'll work, yes. And my classes that are readers know that if they just kind of do their thing and don't distract me, they'll probably get away with some extra time. But surprisingly, there's other classes that are like, how many more minutes of reading do we have? So those classes
I don't know, like 40.
Yeah.
Quiet.
Shh, I'm at a good part.
It's going to be another day if you keep at it.
Yeah. I have been also known to say, guys, we need to find a spot to stop. And some kid will be like, no, I'm at a good spot. So go, okay, 4 more minutes.
4 more minutes for this one person. And you usually try to read a middle school
I do.
appropriate
Yep.
book so that
I try
you can
to
make
read-
recommendations.
Exactly. Either
I love
one that
that.
I've bought or out of the library that our librarian recommends. So that's what this one is that I'm reading right now. And I'm not very far into it, but I'm liking it. It's a fantasy dystopian kind of world where this orphan named Strange is figuring out the world. And
What's the name of the book?
Strange the Dreamer.
By Laini Taylor, who also writes one of our other favorite series,
Okay.
Daughter of Smoke and Bone.
This
you've
one
heard
is
of
very
that.
different than that one.
Oh.
I would say this is more younger, designed for more younger audiences, like early middle school.
But one of my
So-
favorite things about her is her writing style. So is that similar? Like vivid
Yeah, no, it's well written and
descriptions
it's very
and-
descriptive. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
still there. It's just the idea of it is more of a younger person's perspective.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And so fitting there. So yeah, I love our reading time that we
Yes.
have. And there's some controversy in the world of reading right now where people are saying SSR, sustained silent reading, choice reading isn't the way to go, but I will fight for that because to me, I see value in it with kids
Mm-hmm.
and a way to connect with kids very much through books.
Absolutely.
So I talked a long time. How about you? What do you got?
I finished reading. Okay. I feel like my brain's been a little checked out the last few months. I don't know why. Maybe work has been busy, but I had to look up how the two of the 3 books I have finished ended because I couldn't remember. So
When you looked it
yikes.
up, were you like, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. It was an audiobook. This is one I had to look up how it finished because it's like a mystery-ish kind of thriller. There's a little bit of kind of like how Agatha Christie's Halloween Party is, where it's like, is this paranormal? And you're like, no, I don't know. Is it? No. So you're kind of going back and forth the whole time. I guess I don't want to spoil, but I don't prefer paranormal books, so I liked how this ended. And yeah, it's just a good little twist at the end. So yeah, I'm not a fan of paranormal books, but I liked this one a lot. It had good back and forth mystery, kind of like what is going on right now. A little slow at times, but not bad. Then I read an interesting one. It's called Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery by Brahm. Brahm is actually a Gothic artist too. Sam, you want to pull up some of his art? Yeah, he does Gothic art. So actually, I read the audio, but if you get the physical book, he has 6 illustrations. Brom. Brahm. He has 6 illustrations in the actual book, if you read the actual book. And his art is very interesting, but it absolutely like shows kind of what the book's vibes were.
Ooh.
Yes, so that's the main character in the book.
It's a goat man thing.
Yes. His
With a
name is
star
Samson.
in his belly. Is
Yeah.
that
Yes.
I
explained?
like his art style a lot.
Yes. It's very interesting. Very, like I said, you kind of get the vibes with like these, with his art. Very Gothic, very dark literature. And it's just a very interesting story. It is set in, yes, that is Abatha. It is set in Puritan England. Puritan
America? The colonies?
Yes.
Puritan New England.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. I was like, England doesn't sound right. New England's the word. And it's in the time of like witch hunting and stuff like that.
Witch trials.
He does a really great job at making you really angry throughout the book and being like, quit treating people like this. They're just women. Because women are treated so yucky at that time, obviously, and they have no rights. And Abatha's very like, I will do it myself, and I will be like awesome. And then, but also uses a bit of bewitchery to get it done. So she's like treading the line of like, is what I'm doing going to get me killed, or is if I don't do what I have to do, I'm going to get killed anyways because I'm not meeting like the expectations I need to. So it's a fun like just tale of weirdness and interesting, and I liked it. And then A Mysterious Affair at Styles, a Hercule Poirot mystery by Agatha Christie. I read an audio version, and it was really good. Just another Agatha, twisty end and like a fun little mystery.
Easy reads.
Nothing
They're
crazy.
easy.
Yeah. And then currently I'm still reading Shadow of Night by Deborah Harkness. If you've been following along,
the drama of this book in Kaylin's life.
if you've been following along, I've been reading this for 4 months.
You know, I tried a Deborah Harkness novel, I think, about witches. I can't remember the title anymore. That was a recommendation from Kailen when I was listening to this podcast, and I gave up. I was like, this is a bit much. It was like a witch was gonna fall in love with a vampire. The vampire
That's the series I'm
her.
reading right now. It's the second one that I'm reading, and I think my hang up was I had it as a library book because I really liked the first one. I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it as a library book, and I had a deadline, and I don't know what's wrong with me, but I can't read if I have a deadline. Even though now if I have the book, I'm going to read it in one single day, and it'll be like, oh, done. But it took me 3 months because
during which time I was the one that had checked it out just by a happenstance of how it worked out, and I was getting frantic messages from Kailen. Oh my gosh, you have to renew that book. What's going to happen if we don't renew that book and I don't get it done?
I have deadline PTSD, okay?
We'll return it.
I think if you don't
Is the
finish a
problem-
book, the FBI is going to come after you.
Is the problem when you sit down to read and you know something's about to be due, you choose something else to read? Yeah, I kind of have that issue as well.
Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I don't think you've hated assigned reading your whole life.
Yeah. I have.
I'm also though such a library reader that the very few books that I buy and own myself, I never actually prioritize reading them because I'm like, that'll always be there.
Yeah.
Those are the emergency books.
Yeah. I do well with library audiobooks. It's something about a physical book that's like, I have to get this back. Because the audiobook, I just go, boop, return, and it's returned. But I have the book. And I'm like, oh, what if I don't get it back?
Frantic message
You'll
number
have to go on an errand.
Yeah.
Frantic
What if
message number
the-
9 from Kailen was, what if I drop it off after 5 o'clock in the book return?
Have you
I was
ever
freaking out.
considered what if the book return gets full because it's a holiday and a lot of people have returned books?
You're making this smart.
New fear unlocked. Oh no.
Have you?
No.
not until right now.
I'm not that worried about it.
And I think the stress was also that it was under your card. So I'm like, if you get a penalty, it's my fault. And you had a penalty. And I don't know.
About the library and penalties. So I live in Hennepin County, and they've actually removed all fines.
I actually think Grand Forks has too.
And their system auto-renews.
I told you that.
Well, that's cool.
What auto-renews?
Their
That is
system
cool.
auto-renews. You receive an email that says, we've renewed this. Here's how many renewals you have left. Or there's holds on this. You can't renew it. Please return it in 5 days or whatever when it's due.
Okay, maybe I'll try again.
Or not. It's okay.
She also, mom bought me the book on thrift books.
I was like,
because
can I just buy it
freaking
for
out
you
too
so
much.
we can get past this? It's okay.
Yeah.
And if you don't
Anyways.
read it, you don't read it. It was
Yeah.
$4 on thrift books.
I'll send you the list of books I'm freaking out about so you can buy them for me too.
Nice try.
Can I send
yeah.
any?
Yeah. Sure. We'll just, because
Yeah.
teachers, if you buy 4 books, you get the 5th one free on thrift books. So
What the heck?
by buying Kailen that book, I also have 4 new books.
Why did I quit teaching? That sounds like a great deal.
I'll buy them. You just give me your list.
Yes.
I have Venmo.
And then I'm also reading The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden as an audio. I have an hour left. It is awesome. It's typical Frida McFadden. I have read the first one, which is The Housemaid, the second one, which is The Housemaid's Secret, and this is the third one of 3. And it follows the same main character, but now this is like later down the road. I think it's like 20 years, 15 years later or something like that. And like I said, typical Frida McFadden. It's just like the whole time you're kind of going back and forth. And then usually like 2/3 through the book, something switches and something happens and you're like, oh, cool. Yeah. That's all I've been reading. Jen, your turn.
All right. I discovered a new author recently as well who I really like. So I read 2 of her novels, and I think she has one more that I will read. Her name is Lori Frankel. The first one that I read is called 1, 2, 3, and it's a book with 3 main characters. They're triplets, and their nicknames for each other are just their birth order, 1, 2, 3. And the third one born is like nonverbal, so they actually communicate with each other with a sign. They like tap their shoulder once to mean the first one, twice to mean the second one, 3 times to mean the third one. And I forget their names, but their mom named them where the firstborn has 1 syllable in their name, the second one has 2, and the third one has 3.
Cute.
I think it doesn't matter what their names were, but they live in a small town, and there was a factory in the small town that was set up before their birth. And it has a little bit of Erin Brockovich vibes because the factory polluted the water in the area and then closed up shop and moved away. And there's still people living in this town, and they're kind of like living in the aftermath of this disaster. And the mother of the triplets specifically is trying to build a lawsuit against the company that did this, and it never really gets enough traction. And then when the story is happening 20 years later, the family who owned the company move back to town. And it's a bit of a publicity stunt to sort of say, well, of course it's safe here. My family is living here, and we're going to reopen the factory. But this small town also doesn't have a lot of economic options or opportunities. So it's a very depressed town now that this business has left, and the town is kind of grappling with, do we let this employer come back who has made our water unsafe for all of the opportunities and growth that it could bring to our town, or do we say no? And how can we even say no?
Like, how do you tell someone like, nope, can't move back here? Like, how would you do that? But yeah.
Right. So they're kind of like looking into property rights. They're taking lots of legal routes to consider, like, how could we actually block them? And there's a bit of a mystery, and the characters are high school girls, so they're also facing high school girl problems.
Yeah.
The family that owns the business that moves in has a son. The son is pretty cute. There's multiple
course he's
crushes
cute.
going on. And it's very much a subplot. But also, I've realized recently, I think I'm someone who reads a lot for the characters, and the characters were just great. The middle triplet, Monday, is definitely like a neurodivergent character, and just hearing from Monday all of the details that she notices and the things that she thinks about is just like fascinating to hear her perspective on things. Also very sweet. The library closed in the town, and a lot of the books were sold off, but any books that the town could retain, they moved into the triplets' home, and there's an informal library that's run out of their home, and
cute.
Monday is the librarian.
That's cute.
Cute.
But she doesn't actually allow people to come in and browse because the books are literally like stuffed in cabinets and stacked on the toilet. And someone comes to the door and they say what they're looking for and what they want to read. And she finds them the best option of everything that she has, but she knows everything they
cute.
have and
I
where it's
love
all
that.
stored, even though it's not organized like by the Dewey Decimal System by any means. She's sort of like, well, I think she keeps books in the oven or the microwave. I can't quite remember, but she'll be like, oh, I know just where that is. You know, that's in the bread box.
That's so cute.
And the library also is not a great library. It doesn't have a lot of selection. So someone comes like looking for books to help their child decide where to go to college. And the things that she comes up with are like a brochure that is not really for college, Charlotte's Web for some reason. But she has her reasoning also why she thinks like this might meet your needs, even though, we don't have any books that detail.
But try this.
That detail,
It's kind of how we function here.
But may
A
I
little bit on
interest
our
you in this
podcast.
brochure?
Yeah. Another Lori Frankel book is This Is How It Always Is. And that was also a great story of a family moving from Wisconsin to Seattle. And the reason that they choose to move is because one of their children, their fifth boy, is kind of like gender curious, feeling like maybe I actually identify as a girl. I want to wear a skirt to preschool. The family is very supportive, but they encounter not so supportive people outside of their family, and they choose to move. And then it's interesting because when they move, they tell their neighbors, and then their neighbors are like, we're just not going to tell our kids. So they don't really share. And then it becomes this other problem where people are so accepting that they never quite actually say what's really going on with the child until later. And then they're like, the secret comes out. But again, just good characters and a really good story.
Yeah.
I also read Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers.
I
And
feel like I've seen this one. Sam, can you
yeah,
pull
I
up the-
saw it recommended on Book Talk as someone was talking about 3 books that people always circle back to their account and say, oh, this one was so great. There was the author of The Martian, Project Hail Mary. That was another one on this video that I saw that she was like, people always come back, even if it wasn't their genre or whatever, they still love it. So this one is a murder mystery, but maybe an appealing
Yes,
one
I
that
wanted to read this one.
Yeah, that sort of breaks its genre. So even though there is a murder that's happening, Vera Wong owns a tea shop. The murder happens in her tea shop overnight. She discovers the body, and she does call the police, but she doesn't really trust the police to do a good job of the investigation. And this happens pretty early on, but she removes a piece of evidence, which
Vera.
which makes the cops take it less seriously. But then she's also telling everyone they're not taking it seriously. But what ultimately happens is like she's very much a kooky like mother with strong opinions, and she has one son. But the relationship is kind of strained and she's kind of lonely. And this murder investigation leads her to forming many new relationships and friendships,
Oh,
and the
fun.
people that she meets finding qualities about her that they really appreciate.
That sounds like a really fun one.
That sounds
It
really
does.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't talk about everything that I've read recently, but I had been meaning for a long time to read The Midwife, a memoir of birth joy and hard times by Jenifer Worth. There's a BBC series called The Midwife, which is also on Netflix and has a lot of seasons. And that show is based on her books. This is the first in a few that she's written, but it's written like a novel, but it is based on her actual life. She
interesting.
trained as a nurse, and then she moved into a convent, not as a nun, but she lived among the nuns. And the convent that she was living in, the nuns are also trained nurses. And they are the midwives for Poplar, which was a neighborhood in London that was very poor, that was still like destroyed from World War II. So there's like craters that they sort of just like put plywood around, but people still like go into them. Everyone who lives there is packed in very densely, and this is all happening in the 50s before birth control. So the women that live in this
Interesting.
area are having 10 kids. There's someone who has 25.
Oh.
And I don't think even any doubles. So
Jeez Louise.
it's kind of about like poverty, a bit of like historical information about that place in that time, and then also you get lots of birth stories sprinkled in.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's
And that
also
was The Midwife, you said?
yeah, The Midwife. The TV show is called Call the Midwife, and the subtitle is A Memoir of Birth, Joy, and Hard Times. The author is Jenifer Worth.
Written down.
Thank you.
Yeah. Written
Those
down.
were excellent,
Yeah, those sound awesome.
excellent conversations.
Well, we already got a little bit of your background. I mean, obviously we've been chatting, but you live in the cities. You have 3 kids. You want to tell us a little bit about like your previous like jobs and experiences, kind of, and like what has led you to like
your life
be a reader, kind of? Like, has it been a lifelong thing? Was it like discovered later in life, or you always had it early on and then lost it and found it? Like, just kind of give us a little rundown.
Sure. Yeah, so right now I'm a stay-at-home parent. I've got 3 kids, and career-wise before this, I was working as a teacher. I was a science teacher, and I did that for 5 years. And who knows what the future holds? Maybe I will return to teaching in some fashion. There's definitely a lot I love about it, and there's also so many stressors about the job that I'm always thinking, if I went back to it, you know, how could I really make it work for me? How could I say no to a lot of things you get asked to do?
Absolutely.
Because I can't do it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So who knows about the future? But my reading history, I would say it's a hobby discovered later in life. And it has accelerated a lot with discovering audiobooks. Yeah, in the last like several years, I've read way more books than I ever thought was like feasible or possible
Yeah.
because of discovering audiobooks and liking that format so much. I think it's easier for me to process things in audio, and then it also just fits into my life better. There's a lot I can do while listening to an audiobook, and I
Yeah.
can't really do much while reading a book
Right.
physically. So, and it can be hard even to switch back. I think the more I read on paper, the more I could do it, but I do it so infrequently that it's hard.
Yeah.
And earlier in life, I would actually say it was pretty difficult for me to learn to read. Like, I needed some special support in elementary school. It didn't come easily. And I think I could just never read enough in one sitting to get going with the story, even if it was an engaging one. So I've always liked the idea of being a reader.
Of like the stories and like learning or like escaping a little bit, but just the actual act of reading.
Yeah, or maybe even fascinated by when people talk about loving to read, what they like about it and wanting that too. But also it took me a long time to actually like discover it for myself. Maybe I've been determined to be a reader for all my life, but only recently had a lot of books that I've actually been going through to say, yeah, man, I really do. I read a lot.
I'm a
But
reader,
looking back,
yeah.
even when you weren't reading all those books, obviously you were a reader because you were wanting to engage in that piece. So I would say don't judge yourself for that. Like being a reader is
Being interested in reading.
Yeah, wanting to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were definitely still in childhood certain books that I discovered that I did think, oh, this is a great story and I want this feeling again. And even that feeling still feels pretty rare, even though I'm reading tons of books. It's not super hard to narrow down the ones that were just amazing that I wish I could have that feeling again of like experiencing that story.
And since you said like you struggled with initially like kind of like needed help with reading and stuff, did you struggle with like the classroom based reading where it's like we have this book, read it. We don't really care if you're interested in it. We're just going to read it together. Like did you have a hard time with that part of it? Because I feel like that's sometimes the reason some people maybe get pulled away from reading.
Yeah, for me in a classroom, like reading together would work. It was more like the actual work of like decoding written language.
Yeah.
Like I had a diagnosed disability. I don't even really know what it was. It wasn't dyslexia. So actually like teachers in elementary school reading out loud to me, which happened pretty frequently. Like there would be kind of downtime in the classroom where you could like color or work on something. And it was expected that like everyone's quiet and like this is read aloud time. I feel like it happened maybe after lunch. And I don't know how commonly that's happening in elementary now, but we would have a class read aloud book that was a chapter book that our teacher would read. And I would then really get to experience stories in a way that reading independently I couldn't.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say exactly what all my hurdles were. But even now, I don't think that's necessarily changed drastically. Like it's pretty slow for me to process something written on a page. I can process audio really fast. I was a very early talker. And I can listen to a story, it's no problem. Like I'll remember a lot of the details. I love doing that. So maybe that also is what make audiobooks so accessible for me.
Yeah. As then that just is kind of a sidetrack. But then like as a student, like when you were getting your degree and stuff, did you do well with like a lecture or like did you just need to hear it since like you're saying like it sounds like more of an audio processing type learning pattern? Is that like how you preferred to learn? Or this is totally a tangent.
No,
but.
this is an interesting conversation to me. Well, I think for a long time I thought I had to take notes. That's what students do. And later on in my education career, I learned that I would probably retain more from just listening and that it was a better experience for me. And that for the most part, the things are already written in a very organized fashion in the textbook. And just through the practice of school, I definitely learned how to read like informational texts. And there's definitely a place for written text. Like not everything is available on audio, and informational texts with a lot of like graphics and headings and stuff, it's would be hard to recreate as audio. But as a learner, I think always being able to focus on listening or do something relaxing while listening is a better way for me to process information than like trying to take notes in a lecture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm curious about books for your kids now. As you said, like as a stay-at-home parent with the 3 little ones, what are you looking for in kids' books? And do you enjoy that piece of being a mom with your kids?
Yeah, I think one of the things I looked forward to in parenting is definitely like reading bedtime stories. And it's been fun to get to do that. And maybe a little bit because reading was such a process for me to learn as a kid. I view like that exposure to words and reading with them as like maybe giving them a leg up, maybe making it easier for them, at least hoping like it's not going to be so dramatic for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have a 5-year-old and 2 2-year-olds. So that puts us kind of in the picture book realm. Henry, the 5-year-old, has listened to some chapter books. He loved The Secret Garden. I don't really know why. We've read it more than once, and it doesn't really have any pictures. But other than that, yeah, we're mostly reading picture books. And what do I look for in kids' books? I guess I'm looking for their reaction, like even though you're the reader, you're reading for their enjoyment.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can find a happy medium, because I've certainly read things that I just wish I don't have. I wish I can't read this again. But that's what they want to hear. Like for Henry, for a while, it was a Pixar book, 5-minute racing stories. They were all based on the Cars world. And they weren't 5 minutes. They were long. And Pixar has a lot of those books, parents, that say 5-minute whatever stories.
Don't believe the lies.
It's not always true. Some are a little better, but not the Cars stories. They take a minimum of 9.5 minutes.
Did you ever try to skip pages and get caught? Did he ever no? Isaac is nodding.
Isaac's shaking his head.
I remember that trick.
I didn't,
We
but I
just
guess
are
the
skipping
other
to the end.
parent was doing that.
I did that with Kailen when we were kids. I don't know if we've told the story on the podcast before, but when before we moved into the house that we're at now, Kailen and I shared a room. We were like 6 and 2 or whatever like that, or 7 and 3, and she would always be like, Ryan, read me a story. Ryan, read me a story. Ryan, read me a story. And I'm like, oh, fine. So I grabbed The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and halfway through the book, I said, and the caterpillar ate so much that it blew up and died at the end.
I believed that that's how the story ended until I was about 20 or
Was it
18.
just like, that's a horrible story I never want to hear.
Yeah, someone mentioned it, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe that's a kid's story.
Wow.
And I didn't remember it at all. I was like, that sounds like something I would do, but I didn't remember it. And Kaylen's like, oh, I hate that
I
book.
hate
It dies. And
Well-
they're like, what?
Yeah. The truth about the end is that on Saturday, the caterpillar has a stomach ache. On Sunday, it eats a leaf. And by Monday, it's a butterfly.
Oh,
No
you got your happy ending.
And it explodes and dies.
Yeah.
I see you have a list of books.
I do, yeah. The Cars thing was a little bit of a tangent, but let's talk about the girls, the twins, the twin 2-year-olds. They love anything you can touch, anything like tactile. They've always loved board books with texture, and they're still interested in that. And then also something I noticed about them is they love pictures that have photographs over illustrations.
Oh,
Interesting.
So they want to see like pictures of other babies, pictures of parents, pictures of people, pictures of kids at the playground. And they take so much from that, and it's cool to see. What else are they into? Oh, and they like books with mirrors. Sometimes books end in mirrors, and when you get to the mirror, they kiss the mirror. They kiss themselves. They take
so
turns
cute.
doing it.
Self-love.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
affirmations
Yeah.
in your kids' books. I love it.
And one recommendation in that realm, there is this series called We Are Little Feminists, and they have real photos.
That
and
is-
side note.
I love that.
There's a lot of books, board books I've come across that I'm like, this is really for the adult. Like I read one about like activism and stuff, and it was not like really brought to a kid level, which is kind of my pet peeve. So I will say that this book sounds like it's gonna be one of those, but they're actually photographs of people doing real life things, like moving around, and it will show like kids that have braces on their legs or kids in a wheelchair. And my favorite one is How We Eat. And maybe I was just in a place of like just ready to connect with that. But it shows like infants being bottle fed, but then the girls were born prematurely, and so for a long time they were being fed through like an NG tube, and it showed kids or babies with NG tubes. I might even have a picture that isn't graphic of like a mom pumping, and it just did show, in my opinion, like a lot of accessible ways that people do a regular thing. There was also someone using like a therapy spoon, like occupational therapy, like if hand manipulation of silverware is difficult for you, like what kinds of options are there
just
for
like
kids eating.
Exploring that there's not just one way to do things. That's kind of nice. Yeah.
And normalizing it.
Yeah.
I think there's about 6 different books that do a great job of just showing that different people do regular things in different ways.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
That's
it's
awesome.
sweet too that they're photographs. So you should tell me what you see on my notes here that you're so excited about.
I just saw the name Sandra Boynton, and I was like, because it's
The sun has set not long ago.
That you know what? That is my favorite one. So Sandra Boynton is a kid's author, and my top choice for Sandra Boynton books is the Going to Bed book, where
Now
animals,
everyone must go below.
It's a
to
core
brush and
memory
brush
for
and
me.
brush their teeth.
Oh my gosh, I was so surprised the first time I read that. And the animals go below deck and they get ready for bed. Then they have to go upstairs to do something. And you turn the page, they're going to exercise. They exercise on the ship deck. And then they go back downstairs to finally go to bed. But they're all different sizes. So they've got hooks on the wall to get their pajamas from whatever spot they can reach. They all brush their teeth together in a
cute.
big sink. But gosh, Sandra Boynton has the back of her books always show a lot of her other books, but they don't all fit. So I couldn't even
She
say.
has so
I would
many.
estimate she has like 25 to 50
And
board
still
books
coming out
for
with new
kids.
ones, even though they were popular when these guys were little. And I see new ones of hers. I
Yeah.
just bought some. I have a friend expecting, and I was like, oh, there's new ones.
I've heard great things about the Belly Button book, but I haven't read it. That's
Moo ba
another
la la
Sandra
la.
Boynton.
Do you have that one?
I do. Moo ba la la la. I've got that one.
remember.
I know that one.
The cow says moo. The sheep says ba.
Oh, okay.
3 singing pigs say la la la.
Now I remember. Okay.
Yeah. Also, her books are just so simple that sometimes when I don't have a book or we're in the dark, but people won't go to sleep, I just recite them. The few that I
Of
really
which her
know.
kids are 24 and 28.
And you just
And
recited
you just
the book.
recited
Yes.
we may have been through that story a time or two.
Yeah. I feel like they have something decently interesting for the grown-ups, and they also don't have a lot of words, and they're really simple, which is really where you want to be starting with a young reader.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're ready for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we keep going on the children's book topic or pivot?
We can always divide the episode into 2 parts, too.
Our first 2-parter?
Yeah.
What?
'Cause we have lots to talk about still.
Yeah.
Just talk as long as you want.
All right. Well, more authors then. Margaret Wise Brown is a pretty famous author. She wrote Goodnight Moon.
Would you like to
and-
recite any of that one?
I will refrain.
Well, I love reading this one to my kids right now because they are in a phase where they just repeat a lot of words. And so they say good night to everything as you go. Like they love to say good night, mush.
That's really cute.
Yeah. But you maybe haven't heard of other books by her. So she has a book called Big Red Barn that I also like. It has similar art to Goodnight Moon. Something special about the art. Well, Clement Hurd, I think, is the illustrator. So I guess we should be throwing out that name
True.
if we're talking about the art. The light in the room is changing in Goodnight Moon. The moon's position in the window is changing because time is passing and it's showing that. And then the lamp gets turned off and you can still see it's the same room, but it's distinctly darker. And Big Red Barn has the same illustrator and it also goes from day to night. And by nighttime, you can see in the art that the light has changed, and that's something that
That's cool.
I appreciate about it. She also has The Runaway Bunny, and that's not a favorite of mine, but I think some people connect with it. It's got black and white
Oh,
and
I've seen
then
this.
art and it kind of goes back and forth between color and black and white. And it's about maybe a codependent mother, if we're really analyzing it, who will not let her baby bunny be independent and will follow the baby bunny anywhere. And eventually the baby bunny says, I guess I'll just stay in my hole.
Wow. Goodness.
But
That's really funny.
the bunnies get worked into all the art on mountains and on the ocean as sailboats. Yeah.
I guess I'll just stay in my hole.
Yeah. So I loved The Rattletrap Car by Phyllis Root, and I think that was like a later 2000s release, and it just has like great onomatopoeia to it, and it's a bit repetitive, but it's a very hot day, and 3 kids live on a farm, and they really want to go to the beach because it's way too hot. It says it's hot, hot, hot. And they do have a vehicle, but it's clear they don't drive it many places. It does not function super well. And it's kind of a question if it's going to make it all the way to the lake, which is maybe 5 miles away. I mean, it doesn't say. But everyone packs things that they think they're going to need for the beach. For example, a surfboard and a beach ball. And Razzleberry Dazzleberry Fizz.
Ooh.
And along the way, the car breaks in various ways. It loses a wheel.
Oh no.
But someone has an idea and they're able to fix the beach ball to the spot. And they're able to drive with one wheel as a beach ball.
Of
the
course.
bottom falls out, but they put the surfboard in place.
Of course.
They do run out of gas, but luckily they packed Razzleberry Dazzleberry Fizz, and that gets them all the way there. Oh, actually, there's also a wind-up 3-speed boat. They lose the engine, but the boat, which runs on Razzleberry Dazzleberry Fizz, does get them all the way to the beach, and finally they can cool off because it's such a hot day.
Hot day.
Yeah, and the concept is great, but also just like the words are lovely to read. There's a book called Road Work by Sally Sutton, and it is the process of constructing a road from nothing through the hills. So if you have a kid that really loves big machines and diggers and steamrollers, you get to see the construction crew doing all the different parts of building a road. At one point, they take a lunch break, which is a favorite part. And that one in particular, I would recommend like the digital form. I don't know how common this is, but you can find picture books digitally that are kind of like a video, and it has a narrator. And the pages turn for you, and the reader reads it. And that one has just like a great narrator, Tony Chiholte. And I've used that one a lot on like road trips, or we don't have access to a book, but luckily we can get this on our library app, and it's a good story. And that's just one that Henry connected with a lot.
Are you familiar with Storyline Online?
Oh, yes.
No.
Storyline Online is a website or a YouTube channel, I guess, and celebrities read children's books. And they're really, really good. Some are better than others, but they're really, really good. So we use that a lot at school if there's, it's the beginning of the year, nobody's had a chance to do library checkout or whatever, and you pull it up and they have all these ones, and kids are like, oh, Stephanie's Ponytail, I love that one, so you do those. So that might be one, because they do this. Some of them are just, they turn the pages and you see the pages, but some of them, they have video with it that illustrate the story along with it. So that might be one you want to check out.
That's
with a
cool.
whole, and it's all free.
Yeah.
It's sponsored by
Storyline
Online.
I did discover a book called The Gruffalo that I liked a lot, and the way
That
I
one's on
discovered
there.
it was Michelle Obama read it.
That might be part of that.
Yeah,
I think
could
that-
be.
Yeah.
You can also find a surprising number of read alouds and picture books on YouTube, but those sound like maybe they're well done. You can find great ones. You can also sort of find like ones that were done by your local librarian with whatever equipment they can get, and sometimes it's not
But
incredible.
these are
but
professionally produced.
yeah,
They have a Sam.
nice. A little bit on this topic, I was just thinking of for young kids who don't read themselves yet, but don't always have a parent to be their reader. For example, like I feel like Henry was pretty insatiable and we could get 10 books from the library and we'd read them all when we got home. And I would just get tired of entertaining him by reading. At least at our library, there's like a multimedia section in the kids area where they are board books, picture books. They look like a regular book, but in the back hardcover, there's like little electrical thing with a battery and buttons, and it will read the story to you. And it has a chime to tell you when to turn the page. And that's a way for like someone who can manipulate a book and maybe want to hear a story but can't yet read to read.
Oh, that's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, we've used those before.
Like,
on
and when you were
road trips.
talking about you as a reader, as a elementary student, that sounds like something that would have been a cool tool to have.
Yeah, great. Because then if it was hard for me to read a book, I could have
following
still
along
read
with
it
the words, but
independently.
still hearing it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I never heard about that before.
Yeah.
I know
that's
one
awesome.
brand is Vox Books, but I couldn't remember any of the other brands of those like recorded books.
Interesting.
And my last children's book that I didn't want to miss talking about is a series called Cherie and Shira. They are twins. They live in Japan, and every book they go on a bike ride, and it's a little adventure.
Cute.
And they are written by someone who was attending like design school. Her name is Kaya Doi. And then they were translated into English by Yuki Kaneko. And the more that I've read them, something I love is that they definitely follow a formula. Like they always say, oh, we should go for a bike ride. And it isn't, they don't necessarily go on a bike ride because the weather's great. Like one of them, they go for a ride in the snow. And one of them, they go for a ride in the tall grass. The very first one, they go for a ride in the forest. And some features that all the books have are they usually stop off at a cafe or a restaurant and order something nice. And where the like design concepts come in is that these restaurants are meant to serve like many woodland creatures and humans. And so there'll be a lot of tables, but the tables will all be different sizes. And Cherie and Shira will always find one that's just the right size for them. They visit a hotel, and the doors to the various rooms are different sizes,
That's
also
cute.
meant to suit the patron's size.
That's really cute.
One time when they're at a cafe, they are surprised because a waiter brings around something, but they haven't yet ordered. And they're like, what is this? And then they realize that on the windowsill next to their table is a teeny table and two bees are seated at it. And the bees are getting their food.
Oh, cute.
I think there's 8 different stories. One of them happens underground. Some like badgers accidentally dig a hole into their pantry and they don't know who the culprit is that got into their underground pantry, but they decide to go after them, and they go after them on their bicycles. So they're biking in tunnels underground.
Oh, cute.
That's awesome.
Peanuts grow underground, so they discover a peanut factory that animals are running underground.
Cute.
That is
They
cute.
sound awesome.
Yeah, the artwork is also just really lovely. And I forget the name of it, but there is a specific name for if you have a hardcover book, the page that glues the hardcover to like the rest of the pages. And sometimes they're just blank. I wish I could remember the name for it. But in these books, those are maps where you can get to know like the spatial relationship between the
cool.
different stories. So they kind of live near the coast, but they also live near a forest. And you can look at the maps and say like, oh, well, when they went on this bike ride, you know, I think they were over
that's cool.
here.
That is cool.
Oh, when they went on this bike ride, they must have entered the ocean through this bay. They go on a bike ride underwater as well.
Oh,
Of course they do.
these sound awesome.
They do. Awesome.
What are our next questions on our interview list?
One thing you had asked us was about like our goals, like if we have reading goals and like what they are, and if we have goals for next year. For me, this year I did a specific goal of 52 books in the year because I wanted to read one per week because I was studying for the NPTE at this time, the National Physical Therapy Examination, and wanted to make sure that I was doing things for myself too, and I wasn't just studying and going crazy and losing my mind. So I wanted to set a goal. I have never set a reading goal before. So I wanted to set a goal to make sure that I took time for myself and did actually self-care. It is currently week 48 and I have read 48 books.
Wow.
So I am on track. So
That's
have
really impressive.
4 left to go. And I have no idea what my reading goal for next year will be. We'll see. I don't know if I'll do one, but
I've never done that either. I just read when I read.
yeah.
Interesting. Do you do that?
I remember in the
Jen?
when we used to do library though, and we used to have those little like
Oh, yeah.
You
Summer
remember those?
reading programs.
then you get a little prize or take home a book. Yeah, I remember those. Those were awesome.
People old like me will remember the Pizza Hut reading programs. Or maybe you guys had them when
We
you
did
were
the
little.
Pizza
We
Hut
had
reading
those, yeah.
program
When you
yeah.
were in elementary, and if you earned enough books, you got a free personal pan pizza.
Yep.
Read a lot of
Isaac
books.
talks about that a lot. My husband.
Yeah, right.
That was my motivation too. I was like, I want pizza.
I'll read for pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, the library summer programs were always a
They
good
were good.
motivator too.
Yep.
I do set reading goals. I think it came mostly from using Goodreads, where they will kind of prompt you to set a reading goal or, a goal in their reading challenge every year. And maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I started reading a bit more because we lived in an apartment where I had a book club that I joined. And it was pretty nice because it was just people who lived in the apartment. And they were not necessarily my friends beyond
That sounds
book
like the
club,
premise of a book
but-
right there.
It does.
Yeah. You know, I would just like see them in the elevator and Isaac would be like, who's that? Oh, book club Mark. So that's when I first started setting goals, was when I first started using Goodreads, and I hadn't discovered audiobooks yet. So my goal was usually 20 books. And for several years in my like Goodreads history, you can see that I set a goal of 20 books and I read like 13, 14, and I could never quite make it. And now that I read audiobooks, so I've read more books this year than I've ever read in my entire life. My original goal was 60, but I kind of blew it out of the water. So I moved my goal to 100 and I'm
Wow.
at 98 right now.
Oh my
Holy
gosh.
crap.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Woohoo. Yeah, audiobooks do help a ton. I would never have been able to meet this goal if I didn't have audiobooks because
Yeah.
I listen in my drives. I listen when I'm cleaning. Like if I had to do physical books, oh my gosh, I could never meet that goal.
Yeah.
I love the goal of 52, one book a week. And that was my goal maybe 3 years ago. And I just met it, but
Yeah.
also with the help of audiobooks.
Yes.
I guess I don't look at books as how many, but just putting in the time when it's the right time to do it. And I don't want the pressure of a goal of how many books.
It's kind of like the library thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like, I don't want that. I just want to read when I want to read.
Yeah, I only set my goal because of the studying thing because I
Right.
knew that like, okay, I need to have something to achieve because I'm going to, if I don't, I'm just going to keep studying
Yeah.
and studying and studying and not actually do something for me.
And I
So-
respect the setting the goal. I
Yeah.
just think I don't want one more pressure of a goal
Yeah, that makes
in that
sense.
area.
I think for me, instead of doing the number, because like same thing with you guys, I wouldn't like the deadline part of it. Like I feel like I have to read so many books. I would do like this like roulette, the reader roulette thing where it's like you do like a theme instead, where I want to read a book by like a female author or read a book from like a foreign author or something like that.
Kind of like a bingo type thing. Like,
Yeah, I feel like that would be better for me because then it's like, oh, that's a fun like choice I get to make of like what author or like what setting kind of
Well,
thing
and kind
instead
of
of like a number.
the hunt of finding the book that fits.
Yeah.
it.
and forces you to try something new.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like that would be like a better goal for me. I think next year I'm just going to do a goal of like one physical book and one audio book a month and just like start there. So it's I'm not like as pressured to like read as much, and I have a lot of time at work to do audiobooks too, so I feel like I'll be able to do that really well. But then like setting like time aside every week to read like a physical book
Yeah,
It's
I
like
think
a
the
big
time
goal of
for me
mine.
is more than the
Yeah.
number, because then I tend to be like, oh, that's a really big book. I
Yeah.
better not pick that book. Or I won't get that
Yeah.
one done before we do the next podcast. I shouldn't start that one. But it shouldn't be about that. It should be about reading
Right.
what you want to read.
Like
Yeah.
my goal is to like read before bed, because I was in a better habit of like reading right before bed instead of like scrolling on Twitter or watching YouTube or whatever. And I've fallen out of that habit really hard the last couple of months. And so I want to get back into that. So I feel like that's my goal rather than like a number of books to read.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think there are a lot of interesting ways to set goals beyond a number. Like I've heard of people setting a goal to read books they already own
Yeah.
because they don't do that.
Well, there's a
much.
thought.
That's weird. Why would you do that?
I can already hear my wife being like, that's a great idea. Let's do that one so we don't have to buy more.
I think also if you find there's a lot of like reading blogs, and sometimes they will put out challenges that are more prompt based.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really want to try to find one of those that I really like and identify with.
Well,
I
maybe
think.
before our next episode, we should see if we can find a couple of those and see if there's any we want to
I think that's
try
a good
A
out.
idea.
reading blog
And you
to
can
recommend.
join us too, and we can check in with you
Yeah.
and see where we're at with that.
Yeah.
We can have a running tally or like check in of what we do.
Yeah. That might, my challenge is I like to just read the same. I get into a little pattern of just reading the same kind of books, so I like to be pushed to do different.
There's
To
nothing
read
wrong with that
something
though,
else.
because like
Yeah.
you like what you like. Like I like
I
reading
know.
sci-fi and fantasy books.
And if
like,
it's my comfort time, my relaxing time, sometimes I'm okay with that. Like that's the whole, like I'm rereading the book series that I love because, wow, I can just totally relax into that. And there's no,
like you're not going to sit down and read the Stephen King book because that's going to stress you out.
we have been there, right? And we are not going back to Stephen
You are
King.
not going back there.
Do not speak that name at me.
Halloween happens once a year. Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm out for that one next year.
Have you read
That-
a Stephen King?
The Stephen King recommendation got me wanting to. I haven't read
Don't
one.
do
Well, I'm tempted to read The Stand.
I'm kidding. These guys liked it.
The Stand.
Did
what's
anyone
that?
pick The Stand?
Mm-mm.
It's like a post-apocalypse book where the people who do survive, I think, a virus, form two different factions that are like good and evil. And it's
better.
far from what I would normally read, and it's a 48-hour audiobook.
Oh
so
my gosh.
Whoa.
I don't even know if I'm going
That
to be able
sounds
to
right
do
up
it.
my alley.
But I've tried I've tried once to read it hard copy, and that didn't work for me.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
There is a book, I think it is Stephen King, about like the JFK assassination. It's like 11 or whatever, like the day, like 6, whatever. This is the date of the assassination. I should know this as a history teacher.
I mean,
Former
you know
history
the date
teacher.
of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
I sure do, which is more historically important to America.
Absolutely.
But like I looked at it because I have Spotify Premium. They give you like 15 hours of audiobook a month with Spotify Premium, and then if you want to like go over, you can pay extra, whatever. That book, it's like a 40-hour audiobook, so it's like this would take me 3 months to listen to on Spotify, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like I want a
You
book
use all your credits.
a month. I know. So like I want to read like a book in that time. So like I don't want to read anything that long through Spotify. But like I have Libby now.
Yeah.
Or Libro, I think.
Well,
Is the
Libby's
one.
the library
Libro
one.
FM.
Libro is the independent bookstore
Okay,
one.
Libro then is the one that I have too. So like you can get that for like a credit through there. So I'll probably end up doing it that way.
Yeah.
Instead of like Spotify where I have to dedicate a quarter of my year to listening to
Yeah.
this book.
Well, if you do
Because
Libby,
do they limit the amount of time you listen?
Yeah, Spotify gives you 15 hours a month, and it's a hard limit. So
Wow.
I was reading a book. It was the first audiobook I listened to or something that we talked about it a while ago, and it was like I didn't know about the limit, and it was like a 14-hour book.
It was The Silent Patient, I believe.
Yes, that's what it was. Yep. And so it was like that one. It was actually a shorter one. That one was like 8 hours, and then I listened to a
Okay.
Star Wars one that was like 6 or something like that. So I was like right at the limit, and I was like, "Oh, sweet! I'm gonna start another one." And I got into the prologue, like the first chapter, and I was like, "Your subscription is up. You have to." And I was so mad.
I just want to read
what
it.
if it would have happened in the last chapter of the Silent Patient.
Ooh, I would have been angry.
Yeah.
Ooh, the fist was shaking. Oh, angry old man.
This is a bit on the topic of book length. I don't use Storygraph a lot, but I've been trying to get into it a little bit more, and that made me feel like my reading wasn't very diverse because it will tell you the length of the things that you read,
yeah.
and basically all of mine were in the same range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sort of I
Split.
don't do giant attention span, especially if it's audio.
Yeah.
Like
I don't mind like longer books per se. Like I don't think. Like I guess I don't really look at like the length of a book. I just look at if it sounds interesting or not.
Yeah.
And if it happens to fall into that like 300 page range, is like it is what it is. But like I've read like 800 page books before
1,000-page books.
and 1,000 page books, and I've read like 80 page books. So like as long as it's something I'm interested in, I guess I don't really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like an amazing feat for an author to write
Oh my
40
gosh.
hours or
Yeah.
I know.
12,000
Mind-boggling.
pages of something that
Yeah.
someone finds consistently engaging.
Yeah.
Right. Crazy.
all right. Well,
I
we
could
have
never.
the ultimate interview guest question for you, which is always, what is the one book you would recommend to absolutely everybody, regardless of the genre they're interested in, the level of reader they are, how interested they are in reading? What's your one go-to, like, you should try this?
All right, I wrote down a few top favorite books for this, and I was looking and thinking, okay, well, what is going to have like wide appeal? What do I think is going to be accessible for a lot of people? I would go with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow
By
read
Gabrielle
that.
Zevin.
by Gabrielle Zevin. Has anyone read that?
No, but I've read 2 of her other books and very much enjoyed them.
Like them?
I've heard amazing.
I want to
things.
read it very
Yeah.
badly.
So that one follows 2, but really kind of 3 main characters. The 2 meet as kids in like a hospital setting, and they really connect over video games, which I'm not really a big gamer, but my son Henry and my husband Isaac both love video games a lot, and I think sometimes I can be I don't try to be critical of the time spent, but maybe it gets implied in my tone.
I know the feeling.
So I read this book, and it follows these characters into adulthood, and the way that they connect really is through video games. So there's a lot of references to video game history in it. And even as someone who doesn't totally love video games, I thought it was an excellent book. And it kind of changed my heart on video games. After I read it, I started playing Yoshi's Crafted World with Henry.
That's a fun game.
And I think it was good for
That's
our
sweet.
relationship to share video games.
Have you
Cute.
read any other of her books?
No.
I believe she's the author of The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry.
I have read that, actually. I think on your recommendation.
And I
So
think
maybe I'm wrong.
there's a young adult book called Elsewhere by her where it's a really cool concept, and it's when I haven't read it in a long time, so I might be getting this wrong, but when you're born, you come to Earth and then you age backwards.
Whoa.
Oh, like The Curious Life of Benjamin Button.
It's like that, and it's a quick read, and that one is just a neat story of like, wow, how did that author think of that? Like, that's cool.
Cool.
So, sorry to interrupt. Your other ones you have were.
Oh, I wasn't going to.
Oh, you were just going to do that one. Okay. Tomorrow,
I'll just
tomorrow,
leave
tomorrow.
the
wanted to
listeners
that one.
wondering.
Well, you have to, for the next time you come on, you have to have another book. to
Have
recommend.
another
Yeah.
excellent
The
book.
pressure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll follow up on that one.
Yeah.
All right, should we do just our basic recommendations then? Like not necessarily book ones. Do you guys have ones for this week?
I do. And I'll start because they're games.
Wow.
And we were just talking about video games. So
are yours board games or video games?
video games.
Oh, cool.
So
Kaylin's a gamer, Mom.
I'm such a gamer girl.
I was just clarifying.
I love puzzle games, and the simpler they are, the better. But like they can be like simple, but like complex in like terms of like thought process and puzzling. But simple in terms of like point click, point click, point click, like not complicated controls. Sam and I are playing one on his computer on the PC called The Case of the Golden Idol. And basically you go through and it's a story, and every time you open some text and some dialogue, it will come with like words that are underlined, and then you'll click on the words and then they'll store them. And then you basically have to solve the mystery using the words that you find in the dialogue. And so they'll like kind of prompt you, and you'll have to like fill in names of people as you figure them out through the story, and you'll have to like figure out how someone died, like via the murder weapon. So it's like a little bit clue-ish, a little bit puzzly. We have spent a lot of good time being like, what is going on here? Being very confused. And it's really fun. Yeah, that's mine.
Sounds fun.
The Case of the Golden Idol.
All right. Well,
There's 3 games of it too. So.
Mine is a YouTube channel about board games, actually called Actulol. And we as a family really like to do board games. So it's ACTUALOL. So Actulol. And he does all kinds of video games or all kinds of videos about board games. Like I think the most recent one was like top 10 best games for couples. Top 10 best board games you can play in 10 minutes. Like he'll do lists like that. They're not all top 10 lists, and they're good recommendations, and you can get a little preview into the game. And he's really funny. So he tends to play different characters as he does it, and they're very entertaining and quick and easy entertainment. So Actual.
Nice. My recommendation is a few weeks ago here we had the Pride of Dakota show at the Alaris, and one of my really good friends had a booth there. The booth, their business was called Oma's. It's Oma's Made with Love, and it's like an all natural like health product, I guess, store. I don't really know the best way to describe it.
Skincare.
Yeah, skincare. So it's Scott and Ellen are their names who are at the booth, and it started because their founder struggled with diabetes for years, had struggles with dry and cracked skin. And so they created this line of like skincare stuff, like soaps and lotions and moisturizers. That's all like clean ingredients, coconut oil, beef tallow based stuff. And it works really, really well.
Goat's milk from their own goats.
From their own goats. Yeah. It's like all like really like well, like good for you stuff. Sorry, my brain is not working with words today. And if you want to look at them, their like Instagram and Facebook is Oma's, OMAS, Made with Love. And all their stuff is like reasonably priced too. Like for being like a small business and all natural stuff, it's pretty like good, pretty well priced. So
I know you make non-book recommendations, so I have one. It's a restaurant. It's called Guy Nui. It's in Minneapolis, and it's a Laotian restaurant.
How do you spell it?
GAINOI.
That isn't even close.
I think. It means little chick in the Laotian language. If Laotian sounds really far out there for you,
I have no idea what that is.
Similar to Thai food. Laos is
right next to
a country in South Asia.
China.
So there is a lot of cilantro. I think maybe, Kailen, you're not a cilantro eater, but it's mostly like garnish. So maybe you could say, hey, could we skip the cilantro? But
Throw
some
it in the
unique
garbage.
things about it
You can tell them you're allergic. That's what I do with mushrooms.
Throat closes up. Can't.
There's no reservations. It can be busy, but you just walk in and you put your name on a list, and they have a system where they text you. It's got a couple floors, and especially the upper floor in the winter, like it's sort of a greenhouse, but there's a lot of greenery in it, and it feels very warm. So you can kind of enjoy some, I mean, it's near the tropics. Can we call it tropical food?
Yeah,
absolutely.
In a warm environment.
For us, North Dakota / Minnesotans, that's tropical.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
So
I would definitely try that.
Yeah.
Extra cilantro, please.
You can have Kailen's.
And then we also have bookmarks for you guys.
Yeah.
For being guests.
oh, nice.
You guys get bookmarks, so
And I
Isaac
see-
doesn't
So
have to
you
use a
can mark-
receipt anymore.
You can mark your audiobooks.
Coffee cups. Those are great. Thank you.
Yeah, of
I'll
course.
mark my one hard copy book that I read 3 pages of at a time.
Perfect.
Perfect.
I like
That's what it's
it.
there for.
And then anything else for anyone? Can I do socials shout out?
I think
Good.
you're
I
right.
think you're good.
You can find us on Instagram at paperback_perspectives, X at paperback_pod, TikTok, which is still there.
Same with Twitter.
Paperback.pod, YouTube, Paperback Perspectives, and email if you have anything else you want to let us know about at paperbackperspectives@gmail.com. Of course, if you have any questions, any recommendations, if you've read Wicked and want to tell us about it.
Or any of our other.
Anything else, yeah. Just let us know on any of those platforms. And yeah.
All right. Well, as always, we'll wrap up with thank you to the important people. So first off, huge thanks to Jen for joining us and Isaac for being here. So thank you. Loved having your perspective. To our producer, engineer, everything keeps us on track.
Mr. Google
Coordinator, Sam, thank you. To Lauren, our assistant to everything that runs around and takes care of things for us today, which we actually didn't even make you run around very much today.
No.
We were prepared today.
We had notes.
Yeah.
There was a guest. We had to make it look good.
Yeah. There was pressure.
And especially a thank you to everyone who listens and watches and comments. Love. When we were talking about goals, personally, I hope that our podcast is able to continue, which I think is our plan. And I had no idea how fun it would be to interact with people who come up all the time or have comments like, oh, I loved when you did this. This made me laugh when you guys talked about that. So that's so much fun. So thank you to everybody that does that. So until the next chapter.
Until the next chapter.
Until the next chapter.
This is.
Until the next chapter.
Yes.
This is Paperback Perspectives.
Nice.
We did it.